Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
I was honestly a little bit nervous because of connection. I do love connecting with people. And I was like a little scared. And I think this is part of like how social media gets us, is that we feel like if we're off, we're going to fade away. We're not going to exist if we're not in the social media realm. So I thought, okay, I got to get organized. So I went on and I went to my Instagram. That's a strong connection. I need to like write them down. I had a tab for people I didn't want to forget, tab for people I might want to reach out to. And then I had a tab for my friends in real life. Just in case I started going down a mental block of I haven't seen anybody, I don't know who to text. Here's my tab. So then after I got my spreadsheet ready, I did a post. I posted it and right away I came out into my front porch. I got like 3 or 4 texts in a row being like, are you okay? Is everything okay? What's going on? Nothing, y'all. Don't be crazy. I'm just getting off social media. You know, it's so ingrained in our lives that people were like, oh, Deanna's going off the deep end. She's getting off social media. What's she doing? People were like genuinely concerned.
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Is social media a time suck for you? It's a proven productivity buster, but has it ever gotten so bad that you've considered leaving? That happened to today's guest. She did a 6-week social media detox of all her platforms while running her coaching business, and she's sharing the results with us today. Yes, this is another decluttering episode, and yes, you'll come away feeling inspired to slim down your social media if you've been feeling like it's all a bit too much. Today, I welcome Deanna Seymour to the Positively Living podcast. As the host of the Imperfect Party podcast, an art educator for over a decade, and a lifetime of screwing things up, Deanna Seymour knows the power of laughter, self-acceptance, and creativity. Whether she's hosting virtual dance parties or chatting with a mom friend who's having a bad day, Deanna uses humor and empathy to build a community where people feel seen, heard, and ultimately more comfortable in their own skin. When she's not busy making it rain kindness or calling out diet culture, she's doodling on her iPad, hanging with her fam, or sneaking in Bravo TV. So leaving social media isn't new to me. I've randomly dropped off platforms before when I couldn't keep up and when I didn't like it and they weren't serving me, and I just let go because life's too short to stay where you aren't happy, right? I've also known a few friends who leave during certain times, very intentionally, like a break during Lent. In my conversation with Deanna today, she shares a slightly different approach that you'll appreciate if you felt overwhelmed trying to keep up with what's expected of you as a business owner, or even on personal platforms too. The technology continues to grow and change, and with it comes the demands for us to keep up. But why? That's what Deanna asked, and that's why she left 5 platforms and has only brought back 1. She gives us a step-by-step account of the burnout she experienced, why she decided to quit them all, and how she did it in a way where she could stay connected to what she wanted and let go of what she didn't. It was an important process for her to step away from the demands, quiet the noise, and figure out what works best for her and her business. It's a case study in being selective and intentional, and an important reminder that quality wins over quantity. Welcome, Deanna Seymour, to the Positively Living podcast. I am delighted to have you with me today to talk about a different kind of decluttering. And I would love it if you would tell us a bit about who you are, what it is that you do, but more than that, what it is that lights you up.
All right. Lisa, thanks for having me today. I'm super excited to be here. It is one of my favorite things to do, not like social media. I am a creativity coach. I'm very creative. I help other people be creative, whether it's moms infusing more creativity into their daily lives or business owners infusing more of who they are and more creativity into their marketing and all their stuff. I have a podcast called The Imperfect Party, and I just try to do what I can do and spread some little joy and fun and creativity in the world. That's what lights me up.
Yeah. And those were the things that really we connected on. I was like, here's someone who likes to have fun and infuse some positivity. But the fact that you had imperfect as the main word, I was like, yes, that's what we were talking about. We just talked about that before we started hitting record. And I'm like, if something weird happens, it's okay. We just roll with it. This is not about perfection. It is about sharing what inspires us and helping others create what they want to. In all of it, you're following your why and your purpose. So given that, one of the things that if you've listened to me at all, you know that I speak of decluttering constantly because I think it's so important that we evaluate what's going on in our lives and consistently reflect on what belongs and what doesn't. And for you, I was very intrigued with your story of saying social media does not belong. And so
Yes.
let's get into this and tell the story, please, Deanna. What happened?
So I guess the timeline a little bit is like Clubhouse came on the scene, the all audio app. Most people have said does not count as social media, but I think it's still in the realm. And I feel like they all start to blend into one another. So I'm sure the other platforms will start having audio stuff to compete with that. Like as soon as they think somebody likes something, they're like, okay, we're all going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But I did that. And I was like, I really like talking to people. And I had just started my podcast in November of 2020. And I love that. Like I started that because I was like, oh, I love actually talking to people. And obviously the past year we've all been a little starved for that. Starting my podcast, then seeing Clubhouse. And I just kept finding myself saying, oh, in the documentary, The Social Dilemma is in there somewhere. If I didn't have a business, I just wouldn't even be on social media. I don't like it. Doesn't make me happy. And I just always felt like I was making my content calendar or doing what I was supposed to do and planning out my buckets of what I need to talk about and how I need to serve. And if it was another person, I would definitely reevaluate that relationship. The scale is tipped and I feel as though I'm giving a bunch and I'm not getting a bunch in return.
Yeah.
So I just started thinking about, do I have to be on it? Who says I have to be on it? And I feel like punk rock rebel from high school of me. I'm still in the very, very early stages of my business. So I actually am still at this moment, elementary art teacher. I have one more week and then I will be leaving teaching. So I'll have the summer off, which is like normal. But then in the fall, I'll be an entrepreneur. My husband's like, right now, while you're like growing this business, you're going to get off of social media. Don't you sort of need it? And I'm like, I don't know. We're just going to do an experiment. And so that's kind of when I got to the point of I'm going to do it.
You know, when you're in a relationship, you're saying, well, I'm not really getting that much out of this. And I think that key phrase of, I didn't have a business, I wouldn't be on it. It's not making me happy is enough. So that's a really good starting point here. If you find yourself saying this, it's time to say, okay, what could be? And that was the next thing that you did was like, well, do I have to be? I think we all need a little rebel in us. Actually, based on Gretchen Rubin's The Four Tendencies, I'm a questioner. So I feel like I have that rebellious kind of nature already where I'm like, well, I don't know. Do we have to do it this way? That is worth asking. So you asked that question. And I love that your husband was the quote voice of reason at the very least saying, but wait, you're starting a business. So what did you do with that information? What was next for you?
Well, I have my podcast and I have my email list. Your social media is like the people you're sort of hanging out with, and maybe it's like a mixed crowd. So you have to like know your audience. And then my email list is like going to happy hour and sitting in a booth with your best friends. So you can be like leaning in a little and being like, all right, let me really spill the tea. So I feel like my email list is my real people. They're like really invested. That's my real community. So I told him, I'm like, I still have them. I still have the podcast. And I was going to reach out to be guests on podcasts. And look at me, here I am. Because I told him, I'm like, I realize I have to get out in front of people, but that's also my thing is being creative and figuring out ways around, like thinking outside the box. Everybody just thinks, oh, I have to be on social media. And then everybody kind of ends up doing sort of the same things on social media too. And I was trying to do it. That's the other thing that led me down this path. I want to quit my job. I need to go in my business. I'm going to post on TikTok 3 times a day. Oh, reels are a thing. I got to get on reels on Instagram, and I have to post this many times. And then you have to go live because that archives, and you got to repurpose content, and you got to do the show notes for the podcast, edit the podcast. Like, it was so much. It was a full-time job trying to even like, when do I do my business like that I get paid for? Like, this is insane. So that was kind of another push.
And the key word in all of that, listen, was supposed to, right? Supposed to. They're telling you, you're getting these rules. Again, remember, we're always talking about this on the Positively Living podcast. Outsourcing your decisions. Don't do it. Question everything. I suppose the people who are saying, okay, post here or do these things, first of all, I know that they mean well. I do know that they're talking about the platform and the kind of responsiveness you'll get in the platform, but you also have to question what that responsiveness is. And I'm curious, for all that you were doing, what kind of response were you getting? And was that translating into, okay, I wish you could see Deanna's face right now because she's got a look and her head is shaking back and forth. That's a no, that's a negatory, that's a nuh-uh, that's a nada. So then what's the point if you are not connecting properly? It is very true that in business, especially creative business, high-touch business, we fellow multi-passionates, right? We connect with others. So relationships are important. But where are you developing the relationships? And it sounds like for you, social media was not the place anyhow. Basically, you didn't get any results and you were burnt out trying to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I was spread so thin that I try to stack some of the posts and schedule them in Tailwind or whatever so much that sometimes my husband would at home comment on a picture I posted and I'd be like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, I planned that like 2 weeks ago because I'm just trying to do all the things. The human aspect of it went out the window. Like, it was taking over because I was trying to do all the things and do them well. And the last thing on the list was connecting to humans. You're right, which is my favorite thing to do.
Right. It's where you shine. It's what you love. It's what you need in order to grow your business. And you weren't getting to do it by following this other rule. I'm curious, have you ever taken the 4 Tendencies quiz?
I have not.
I am very curious if you are an obliger. It's 72% of the population, so there's certainly a likelihood. What will happen with obligers is because it's external expectations. If people tell you this is what they need, you jump to it. And it's really about showing up for inner and outer expectations. It's only one sliver of who you are as a person, to be sure. But it's an interesting indicator of how you might initially respond. And obligers will tend to have something called obliger rebellion, where finally they get fed up because they've been doing everything that everybody else wants them to do for so freaking long. And they're tired and they've had enough and they're done. And then they rebel.
And quit everything like me.
Yeah, there's something familiar in there. So I'll definitely send you that link after.
I'm really intrigued.
Yeah. All of the burnout, none of the results. Fun.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, my best connections are from people who were on my podcast. There's been some connections and some people were like, well, I met you on social media. And I'm like, yeah, but then you're on my podcast. So that's like the real thing. But then that was like also one of the first seeds coming back to be like, I did meet her on social media. Like, maybe it's not all bad. So I had like a whole system when I was deciding to quit. I didn't just say, okay, I hate it, I'm getting off. I was like, okay, let me be responsible about this because I do have a business and I do kind of feel like I need it. So let me like get some ducks in a row to feel a little bit better about what I'm doing. So I'm not a spreadsheet person at all, but I made a spreadsheet. And I was honestly a little bit nervous because of connection. I do love connecting with people. Mm-hmm. And I was like a little scared. And I think this is part of like how social media gets us, is that we feel like if we're off, we're going to fade away. We're not going to exist if we're not in the social media realm. So I thought, okay, I got to get organized. So I went on and I went to my Instagram followers. That's a strong connection. I need to like write them down. I was deep in the spreadsheet. And for me, it's like very impressive. I had a tab for people didn't want to forget. Because even though it's like they're in my email, when you're not scrolling and seeing them often, I didn't want to forget. So it's like spreadsheet of people I've already connected with. Tab for people I might want to reach out to. Maybe they can come on my podcast. Maybe I can go on their podcast. And then I had a tab for my friends in real life, which I know sounds so funny, just in case I started going down a mental block of I haven't seen anybody, I don't know who to text. Here's my tab. Deanna, you have friends. Here they are. But those were definitely the 3 tabs. Business people for real, Instagram people maybe, and friends in real life. So then after I got my spreadsheet ready, I did a post, not to be dramatic, but I just wanted to let people know, just in case I missed anybody. I didn't mention the spreadsheet because that would be weird. I'll give it some time. I'll say, I'm thinking I'm going to get off all social media. So like hit me up if you think you have a new phone number or whatever. I posted it and right away I came out into my sun porch where I am right now. I got like 3 or 4 texts in a row being like, are you okay? Is everything okay? What's going on? Nothing, y'all. Don't be crazy. I'm just getting off social media. You know, it's so ingrained in our lives that people were like, oh, Deanna's going off the deep end. She's getting off social media. What's she doing? People were like genuinely concerned and fueled me, I think, a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm making the right choice.
Yeah, that's interesting because it showed you what you were already thinking about what's going on there and how ingrained this is and how deep everyone is and what the expectations are of everyone.
Yes.
And the first thing is like, are you quitting your business? I think the given now is we're on social media. And then what's the next one you can be on? And the next one and the next one. And are you on this one? And you need to be on this one. I mean, I have such a story about Clubhouse. I do like it. I've been on it. I've collaborated, but I'm the slowest person on there because the first thing that this productivity coach did was, that's another time suck. Oh my word. For me, for my clients, I had the eyebrow up. I was eyeing it. I'm like, okay, I guess it's interesting because it's promoting conversations, but we'll see. And then when I was hearing people say, I was on it for hours, I'm like, what?
Yeah, I never got in it like that deep. And I feel like people were telling me if I hosted a room, I should do it longer. I mean, I'm a mom. I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I'd be like, I got 30 minutes. Are you on or not on? And most of the time, my rooms were me and 2 other people, which was cool. That just felt like people. I don't know about these big rooms where people spend hours just listening. It feels like a conference, which is great, but I can't go to a conference every day.
Or they're trying to get in and they're not really listening, but they're waiting for a chance to talk. You find that everywhere. So really, when you start to focus on the places where true conversation can happen, whole different ballgame. Definitely in podcasting, that's for sure. That's a brilliant place. Then, did you actually close out accounts? Did you archive? How did that work?
You can deactivate your Facebook. So I was just kind of nervous. There's definitely baby picture. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm not ready. I'm still a little nervous. It's the social media monster. I'm kind of being a rebel here. So I just deactivated. Nobody can find me, but if I want to, I can go log in and be there again. It will just all come back.
Okay.
TikTok, I was on for a second. So I just was delete. I don't need it. It's gone. And then I had 2 Instagrams, my own, since Instagram came out, reminding me of when I liked Instagram. Scrolling back, I'm like, well, that was fun. When I wasn't trying to monetize something and I just did something. And I had one for the podcast. So I deactivated those. But again, if you just log in, you can be back. And then Pinterest, I was never really on. I tried to hire someone to do my Pinterest, and it was a lesson in how to try to outsource and not be very thorough in hiring your people.
So we say it's a win or a learn. We'll call that one a big old learn.
That was a really big learn. I've never did anything with my Pinterest. So I guess technically it's still there, but I'm not pinning it. I feel like the big players are definitely Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I feel like maybe Clubhouse counts as social media. I guess it was about 6 weeks that I was off all social media because I told you today I signed back into Instagram.
I think you have indicated a good reason for that. But before we get there, I want to add a couple things. One is that I think social media, we get to identify what that means to us. It's all semantics, but it's where are you being social? What are you trying to accomplish? And what is it doing for your business? Here's an opportunity. And actually, by you cleaning out and deactivating, it's a really interesting, maybe extreme for some, but that's why we're talking about this as a consideration. It's a little reminiscent of when you are decluttering a closet. You got to take everything out of that sucker and then decide what goes back in. Now, when we first talked, it was ooh, you got an empty closet for social media. That's fascinating. What did you put back in there? Well, my podcast and my email list, all that makes sense. And now you're like, oh, you know what? I have room and I really like how I look on Instagram. I'm putting that back in there as well. And that's awesome because it's intentional. It's specific. It's with a purpose because you are now saying, I'm not doing it for an arbitrary reason. I'm not doing it because other people told me. I'm not doing it because it's expected. I'm doing it because it makes sense for how I work with people, how I live, what energizes me, what lights me up. And most importantly, like when you were mentioning Pinterest, that's actually very important for some businesses. You need to be very specific and very clear about what it is that you do and where your people go to find you. I resisted Instagram for quite some time, thinking I wasn't cool enough. By the way, I'm not, but it doesn't matter. I'm still there. I have a blast. And it turns out my people are there. I really resisted Twitter for like ever. It turns out it's awesome for my podcast. So that's where I play. LinkedIn, not so much. No offense to it. Again, if you are trying to book corporate speaking gigs, you better be over there on LinkedIn. And when we work together, that's what we're going to be focused on. It's all about being intentional based on your business. Given that, I do want to know during this time that you had the break, which lasted how long?
So I made it from May 1st to June 10th.
That gave you a chance. I mean, that's really like, I mean, a lot of people will like, go on a diet or, do something like that. So in a way, it is kind of like a social media diet. Not that I believe in diets, but I'm just saying, that's not my thing.
Well, they don't work and neither did my detox. So I'm back on. No, just kidding.
That's a very interesting point because you're right. Diets don't work. I do believe in that. I shout out to Megan Hadley, who was on here talking about intuitive eating and the fact that diets don't work. Love that episode. But given that, it did give you a chance. In a way, it was a little bit like a detox, but you stepped back so that you could have some clarity. What changed for you and your business during that time?
I'm coming back doing things the way I want to do them. And I quieted so many voices during that time.
What was it about Instagram? I mean, it wasn't like, oh, I broke up with him, but what was I thinking? And then you get back together and you're like, oh, what was I thinking? How does it feel right now? It is pretty fresh while we're talking about this, but is there something about Instagram that called to you to say, that one is one I want to bring back?
I think it's the one I've enjoyed most. So when you mentioned Twitter and LinkedIn, I was like, oh yeah, those, because I tend to like think in my own little world. I tried Twitter like when it first came out, and then I feel like I would try it a couple other times. And before I had businesses, just because people without businesses are on Twitter and they like it. But I would always just be like, I don't know what to say, And so it's a funny one because I feel like you do match up with certain ones. So Twitter and I like never hit it off. I tried a few times, and I was like, that's not going to happen. So I think for me, Instagram was fun at one point, but when I started turning it into like, you got to have the hashtags, you got to have the niche hashtags, you got to have a hashtag between this and this, and you got to record this, and you have to serve your audience, and you have to write these. I feel like a lot of people write really long captions, and I'm like, I don't want to write really long captions, but then I was doing it because, like we said before, I was supposed to. So now I'm going back being like, when did I have fun doing Instagram? Before I had a business. So maybe it doesn't even have to go away completely. Maybe I can just break all the rules, but still at least be there so I could message someone, or I could share my podcast episodes, and the people who are on my podcast could share the episodes. I can share this episode. It's like I kind of felt like I was missing some of it, but now I feel like I'm going back and I'm going to do it my way. Like I posted today and I didn't use any hashtags. What?
Do you want to know a secret? That's exactly what I do on Instagram. I just do what I want. When you were like, well, you need to have a separate one for your podcast. Psha, no, you get everything on Instagram with me. If you follow me, you get podcast updates. You get awesome connections with awesome people. You get really hysterical and stupid, often one and the same memes. You get pictures of my cats. Coffee will be mentioned. There's Venn diagrams at least once. It should be once a month, probably once a quarter. But you see, I don't play by the rules. But I have fun. We all have fun. That's why people follow me. People tell me that they follow me on Instagram because it's fun, because it's a break. Now, I will tell you when I'm offering something, I will share things that happen. I coach. We have productivity boosts and they're really fun and they're really successful. And we all want to be successful. We all want to be able to release these obligations, right? And play by our own rules and create what we want to create. And I do help people do that. And I tell them about it, but we have fun doing it. Yes. Yes, Deanna, play by your own rules on Instagram. Good for you.
Which is like what I teach, I feel like, but I just got so entrenched in it. And I do think the sort of, I want to quit teaching at the end of the school year got the best of me. So I think sometimes too with businesses and when we're running our own businesses, we can start to feel that pressure and like, okay, well, I don't want to renew my contract. I know they're going to ask me soon. So I need to like hustle, hustle, hustle. And before you know it, you're like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't even like what I would teach someone to do. I'm breaking all the wrong rules. I need to follow my fun rule and break all the, it just.
That's an absolutely understandable thing. And we've all, I think, fallen into this trap. Jeff, Harry, and I were just having a great conversation about this. We were talking about play to get rid of that inner critic. Probably more like make friends with the inner critic and tell the inner critic to sit down and eat some Cheetos and be quiet. We were talking about play and having fun with that and how that gets you into flow. And as a creativity coach, you know this so well, but when we have these moments, and especially in business, and especially when we give ourselves a deadline and there are certain expectations, that's when the mindset shift can happen, that we move out of fear instead of our passion and our flow. And when we do that, suddenly all the rules come flooding at us and we think, okay, we have to do this thing. We have to. The have to's, the shoulds come out in full force, right?
Yes.
It sounds to me like your social media detox really helped you release those shoulds.
100%. And I'm hoping too that it sort of showed me the warning signs too, that it won't get so bad that I have to quit everything. I mean, I honestly have no plans of reintroducing any other, I think between Instagram and email list and a podcast, that's enough people for me.
Right.
Like, I'm good, so I want to spend more time making things and being creative and having fun. And Instagram is the perfect visual platform for me to also share the fun things I make, which is another reason I lean towards Instagram. It's a visual platform.
There you go. So you work with what fits for you and for your people. Something I was curious about is that, can we run a business without social media? I think the answer is yes, because it's really about how are you working this business? How are you connecting with others? And you gave us some great examples. So if you wanted to do a full-on detox, like for good, you totally could, if you had your email list and you had another way to connect with people. But at the same time, what this is about is not an extreme one way or the other, but being absolutely intentional. And it sounds like you did that beautifully. Any other words of wisdom or advice about this?
I just joined today, but I'm going to go through who I follow because maybe I am an obliger, because when people follow me, I feel like obligated sometimes to follow them back. But I really want to clean up the messages I'm seeing. One thing I like about Clubhouse is you get to kind of choose what you walk into. It might be a little misleading based on the title, but you're not just immediately bombarded. But with Instagram, it's there. Like if you're following it, it's there. So I need to go through and make sure that I'm following only things that really light me up. And I think that is going to help me clear all that clutter too. I don't want to follow anybody who's telling me how many hashtags I have to use. Sorry.
I like that. So, well, first of all, decluttering any kind of messages that don't lift you up and light you up. That's really important. Now we're talking about the digital decluttering in what I would phrase as like information clutter. The passive stuff that comes in at us. We can control this. Have you checked your subscriptions lately? Who are you following? What kind of advice are they sending you? If you have something, whether it's in your email or on Instagram, where they are talking to you about dieting and you literally just said, nope, don't believe in that. You don't want that kind of energy and that kind of message coming at you. It's taking space away from the messages and the people that you want to see.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think too, if I follow less people, it's like less of a scroll. And I'm not putting it back on my phone. That's an interesting thing so far. I mean, it's been today, but I'm going to put it on my iPad, which I don't use all the time, but I can post from there. And, just little changes that I'm like, I really loved not having my phone. Like, it's funny how many times I pick it up and be like, oh yeah, I quit everything. Like, it's embarrassing how many times I was like,
yeah,
I guess I can check my email.
Now you're talking habits. So there's a couple different things happening here. One is, of course, just removing everything and figuring out what belongs again. And then the other is the intentionality of how you're setting it up to create the right kind of habit for you. With habits, it's what serves you and what doesn't. I don't really like good and bad because it's very judgy. And moreover, there's always some kind of reward, but you have to figure out what the reward is. But if you have a habit that you want to lessen because it doesn't serve you as much, or you want to control in a different way, then controlling, for example, with an Instagram app, controlling how easy it is to get to it. If you don't have it on your phone, that would be the easiest way, right? Now, if you have it on your phone and you're like, Lisa, please don't make me take it first of all, I'm never going to tell you you can't have it. Ever, ever, ever. We'll never tell you that. But I will say, if you find that it's getting in the way, like it did with Deanna, and you want to take a break, the first thing you can do is put it on the second or third page of your apps, because I know you, and I know you have more than one page of apps, right? Let's be real here, okay? We're all keeping it real. Talk about my scroll on my phone. I'm with you in this, but make it more difficult to get to the thing that you don't want to get to as much. So the habits that don't serve you, you make more difficult. The habits that do serve you, you make easier. Those are great tips. Okay. Tell us again, okay, your podcast, the Imperfect Party Podcast, right? And where we can find you online, or the best way to connect with you?
I still think, because who knows, like I said, what if I have this detox again? I think the best way is through my email list, if you're really interested.
All right. That sounds good. So, rapid wrap-up time. Please fill in the blanks. The song that always makes me dance is?
Footloose by Kenny Loggins.
I mean, it's direct, it's to the point, and it's awesome. All right. How about the quote or mantra I share all the time is?
Well, I usually say it more inappropriately, but I'm going to keep it clean. But F it. I say that to myself all the time, which was also the last probably 2 words I said before when I was like, should I get off social media? It's like, F it. Just do it. Just do the thing.
Yep. Good. The resource, book, or app, and any of these that makes my life easier.
Okay. I think I really love, it's a calendar. It's called Artful Agenda. And it is like a digital calendar, but it's cute. It's a little artsy for me. That it looks like it has like digital stickers and stuff, which I don't do all that. Like I thought I would when I got it, but it's very easy to use and it syncs with my Google Calendar, but it's way cuter. So the best I've ever done at a calendar, but I'm still not that great.
Okay. And last but not least, we'll end on some gratitude. What or whom are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for our swimming pool. We have a pool at my house, and I just feel like we have spent so much time in it last summer and now this summer already. And I just like, we go out in the pool and we're there all day. So I think all the time, like, oh, this is so amazing. So I'm very grateful for my pool.
Love it. It's always amazing when you can be in a space that you don't feel the need to get away from, that you'd rather that you'd be there, like having your own vacation at home.
For sure.
Great. Well, I am most certainly grateful for you and our conversation today. And I want to thank you, Deanna, for shining your light in this world and for sharing it with us.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.